Hello, guys. How we doing? Small crowd tonight. Wednesdays. It's usually the day that turns out bad for most. I am doing great, thank you. Had a great trading day, had a very productive day. Couldn't be doing better. You know what? We'll get right into it. Right? Not much to talk about on a day like this, right? At least for myself, from a higher time frame perspective, I could frame both sides, right? We discussed this at the end of the last PA review, which sadly wasn't fully recorded. So I'm going to be checking out, making sure that it is correctly being recorded this time. I basically misclicked and stopped it in the middle, so do apologize for that. But we had a clear objective lower, right? As we discussed. So we have our objective. So until that objective is met, I don't really expect any sort of higher time frame retracement. But we can still get some intraday retracement. So on a day like this, I can anticipate a continuation, but we also formed a pretty sizable wick. And if you guys want rules about this, well, for me, it's all about the candle, right? And I'm looking at the proportions. And more specifically, I like to split it up into quarters. Is it this one? Let me find it. Quarters, there it is. So I know that if it closes within this range, we're still very bearish, right? It's a very bearish close. If we close below 0.5, it's a bearish close, but I can allow for some retracements. So I was looking for retracements within that range specifically. I had also eighths drawn up, and if you're looking for the multipliers, you have them right here. You can take a screenshot of this, or I can send it after. But I like to use the previous candle as a range in cases like these when I look to frame retracements. But as I explained, I can also frame shorts, right? Continuations lower. More specifically, we had a very beautiful immediate rebalance here, which is not something I talk about quite a bit, but we had a huge gap, right? A lot of displacement. Then we retraced to that exact level of the previous candle. That's what we call an immediate rebalance. It is a very nice pattern to look for continuations specifically, right? I just looking at recent price action, I see another one right here. And of course, I see one here where we dove a lot higher. But see, this is a great sign where you can look for this and use this as a higher time frame point of interest, as I do. So basically, to just frame it all very simply, I was looking for both sides today. I didn't have a clear direction. I didn't have a clear grasp on the market. It could keep going down, could keep bleeding, as I like to say, or we could start some sort of small retracement. So how do I interact? Well, I always tell you guys, I use intraday frameworks. So I use session highs and lows, and I look to align with the daily power of 3 development. Let me remove this. I was messing around with this. Let's do vertical line, not vertical line, opening price. So we had news at 10 a.m. specifically, and I did share on Twitter today how I personally went about it. So I decided to use statistics. Why? Because I don't have a clear grasp on the market. And if we look at the daily power of 3, well, I was framing, okay, well, this could be low of day, right? Very early low, formed right here, formed in the new day opening gap, and then expansion higher, but we returned to it at the open. So from this point on, all of this was just consolidation. For me, I was framing all of this movement all as consolidation. And then once we had that small move lower here, I couldn't consider that a raid because it was not sizable enough. So could I consider this manipulation? No. Yeah, as you said, Faraz. Oh, I just turned to see a lot more people join. What's up, guys? Hello. Nice to see you all tonight. But yes, this is a scam, right? It is not true manipulation. This is not an important point in market structure in my book. This is just us gravitating back to the new day opening gap to form SMT, right? That's the key point. So once the SMT is there, I can trust it a little more. So if I was trading near the open, I'd be looking for longs. Now, personally, I wasn't. But did we have a clear Judah swing at 930 formed with SMT? 100%, right? If we look at 930 here, we had a beautiful rundown formed with the SMT, which means that I can look to trade before the news. So we're going to look at setups like this. Now, this is a concept I have brought slowly to you guys because I think it's important to bring it in increments, right? Because it's a pretty complex thing. recording right? Yes, I just spoke about this. I'm going to be double checking it a lot. What are rules for before news trading? Is exactly this. I need a Judas swing, a clear Judas swing, right? So that's in the rule, clear, which means I need to see a clear move lower. And here at 9:30, we instantly dove lower. That's step one. Well, step 1 and 2, because step 1 is I need to see it at 9:30. And of course, it can go from 9:30 to 9:34, for example, right? It doesn't have to last only 1 minute, but it needs to start at 9:30. Need to see a clear Judas swing, or 8:30. These are my two Judas swing times, pretty much. For an overnight Judas swing, I can go for 8:30. And it needs to be confirmed with SMT. If this happens, then I know that the market's manipulation is already present. So the next news will not need to manipulate. And you'll notice that every time this is present, and when I say every time, I do mean every time, and every time is never 100%, right? But we're talking about the 80 percentile. When the Judas swing occurs at 9:30, the later news are related to expansion. In this case, we just had a very high resistance move higher before having a nicer move lower. And I shared once again the data, the statistics behind that move, which very high success rate framework to go short afterwards. But in this case specifically, I'd be looking for longs. I have a very clear framework to go long. Of course, we're just consolidating, so I understand that I'll be trading manipulation. But you have it very clear, and you see this daily immediate rebalance here. Let me actually just bring it a little smaller so that we can actually see something. But we had a very nice daily immediate rebalance at this level. It was just honestly textbook right there. That's a higher time frame point of interest. But if you wanted something easier, right around this mark, we had the quarters where I talked about at the beginning of this call, right? So very simple rules to trade before news. And how do you interact with price? Well, always in the same exact way. I'm looking for a breaker block to form. This is the first breaker block that was formed. Let's mark it out as such. And if we look at this, and do I have my, yes, standard deviations are there. If we look at this, what is my first entry? Well, in this case, it would actually be inversion fair value gap right here. Yeah, we did we dive into this? Let's zoom in a little more. We went right on the tap of it. Sweet 60-point breaker. Yes, a very large breaker. And this leads me to this trade, right? So if I'm entering here, right? So just I'll mark out the second line, inversion fair value gap right here, right? If I'm entering here, where's my stop loss? Well, inversion fair value gap, order block. This is simply a stop loss. I'm not going to lie, I didn't see this inversion fair value gap this morning. So I just had the entry on the fair value gap, and then I didn't count this one, and stop would have been here. But this is just a straight up stop loss. Is your idea still valid if we go down here and we respect that order block? Yes, but truth is we closed below it. So we shouldn't have been. Basically, it didn't get respected. So this should not be a setup you're looking to trade. It just had a failed. Basically, your setup was invalidated, right? At the point of your stop loss. So you could look for other setups in that same direction. But once again, truth is, it was just a failed setup. There's not much to say about losses. That's why, and that might surprise a lot of you actually, that when I teach, I tell people to backtest wins only. Because you'll have plenty of losses when you start demo trading. And that is a must do for your path, right? As a beginning trader. For me, at least that's what I believe in. And there's no point in learning about losses except if you're live in the markets. And then you can tell yourself if it's a good loss or it's a loss that you could have avoided. But when you're backtesting, all you're really trying to do is, am I able to recognize my setups and are my setups successful? And at some point, a system makes so much money that it doesn't matter how much you lose, as long as you get a maximum, pretty much, right? So if you only take good losses, you put a maximum amount of trades per day, and you're going to end up profitable. And that's just basic math. Sorry, I got caught up in this. But in this case, that's just a good loss. In my book, I would have been targeting the high of this consolidation, right? All of this level, very clear objective to go target. And with the 2 standard deviations, just about 2R would have been a great setup to look for. Now you might say, oh, well, you should have put your stop loss there and you would have still been in the trade. If my trade goes all the way down here in drawdown, that is not a trade I'm comfortable in being anyways. So just a good loss, mechanical stop loss rule, quite happy. Well, not happy with it, but can accept that loss. Sweet 60 point. The 999 fib. Wow. But yes, just to continue into it, right? At this point, you could look for continuation, but the setup that offered a continuation was right on the dot of the news. So 10 a.m. right on the news. So that's just, you expect this candle to be volatile. Now, in this case, it wasn't much. There was a lot of slippage though, but you could have entered right there. You could have entered just before, but I'm not really going to speak on this because this only happens. Well, I mean, if you were still bullish. For myself, I was looking for shorts, so I was seeing this as manipulation. So I was just waiting for a good short setup after the news, but we'll look at it, right? So you have that breaker, you have that fair value gap, which is your setup. You're just going to give it some time after the news. I always tell my students that you're going to wait for 1010. If we look right here at 1010, is your setup still valid? Yeah, just click on the button. You don't even need to wait for PDR because we're already in it. But in this case, is it a very good setup? No. That's the truth, right? You're trading, you're all the way close to your objective. You have waited after the news. We consolidated near your entry. Stop loss, what would have been your stop loss, almost got hit. So of course, if you're in this trade, I'm going to say, okay, well, hold it because it's a valid idea. But the truth is, you should never have been in this trade anyways, right? And yes, of course, seeing it with hindsight, we had a lot of movement to the upside, but that's not what I personally anticipated. If you were looking for longs, then this is a very nice setup that you could have looked to trade. But for myself, this is not a setup that I would consider taking. Personally, after the 10 a.m. news, I'd be waiting for a breaker, and you just never got an entry until here. And at that point in time, it's just still, you're basically longing in premium. And what I mean by here is, I would wait after 1010, wait for another breaker to form right here. And if we look to the left here, you'll find an inversion fair value gap. Can I use this for an entry? It's been so long that it formed. Yes, because I'm looking at price horizontally in this case. I don't care how long ago it's been. It's at my level. And if we look right here, right, inversed it right there, entry at 1013. Let's actually look at what kind of risk to reward this offers. You have inversion fair value gap, you have a tiny fair value gap, and then order block. So you actually have a pretty tight stop loss there. Do you ever long in premium? Well, see, that's a trick question, because do I ever long in premium of a 1 minute range? Yes. Do I ever long in premium of an intraday range? Yes, on trending days. So on days where, for example, I had a clear manipulation set during Asia, and then London just ran, New York opens, retraces, and then just continues, then I'm going to be longing in premium of my intraday range. I'm probably going to be longing in premium of my daily range. So yes, a short answer, yes, I do long in premium. But once I see this, and this is my objective, I'm always referring to my implied dealing range. So for example, if I plot it off, I like to use this because it always splits it into quarters. It is not an amazing concept and whatnot. Well, yes and no. It's just not a concept that I utilize to trade. It's a concept that I utilize to manage trades and expectations. Because I know all my best entries are below here. And once I'm above this, I'm late. And if I'm here, I am super late. My target is here. So it's more so a question of proximity to my objectives, more so than premium and discount. But in this case, if you would have entered, you would have had the opportunity to make plenty and definitely look to take profit, right? Beautiful standard deviation level here. But as I always say, I would have went break even at my target, probably took a tiny partial here and just got stopped out break even. So even on successful trades like this, I don't like to showcase them to you because that's never a trade I'm placing. So even though the model works in this specific area, I use my own, what's the word for it? my own thought process, but there's a word for it. My own discretion. There we go. I use my own discretion and experience to filter out the ones I want to take and the ones I don't. And truth is, on a day like this, the one I wanted to take would have stopped me out, and the one I didn't want to take would have won. You can speak French, it's okay. I don't know that word in French. Well, I mean, it's the same word, actually. Discretion. Is that a word? You're messing up my brain, Ferez, all right? My brain power today is pretty low, all right? Give me a shot. Give me a chance. But here, successful setup, which is not something I'm looking to trade. And now, am I going to look for a continuation after? Well, the only way I can do so if there's SMT. And if you look at this low right here, there is no SMT. So I can't really frame this as a retracement. So in this case, that's just not a move I want to engage in the market with. I'm more interested in trading the other side, even though that is a retracement. So I'm more interested in going short in this case. For example, you could go short here. This is what I personally traded this morning. This was my first short. I took 2 shorts and 1 long today. And I did not long before the news. I'll show you guys. But looking at this breaker block right here, that was formed. And now you might ask, well, why aren't you shorting that breaker block? Because before that objective was met, I could not look for retracements. Now that this target is reached and I am within my reversal range, and I don't bring any precision to this. I don't care that we closed above the reversal range. For me, this is like a point of interest, right? On a 1-minute chart, we don't need to respect that or not. This is like a mitigation level. We hit this level, now we can do something else. This is how I see it. So we hit our target, we hit these standard deviations, we can now look to reverse. And I was framing retracements, and if you guys want to see, like, pretty simple stuff here. That is a very high probability objective that I see right here with relative equal lows. So for me, that was a very easy target. And then we have relative equal lows at the bottom right here as well. So very easy thing for me to trade in this case. The only thing that was missing is, you'll guys see it right away, that there's no SMT. But there was some sort of 15-minute SMT that I remember. Let's actually try and look at it. Let's try and find it. Yeah, well, I mean, I opened the 15-minute chart and it's super obvious. All of this on NASDAQ, right? All of this right here didn't get taken out, but it did on ES, right? We're looking at all of these levels right here. So very clear divergence here, very clear SMT if you guys want to visualize it with a specific swing point, right? We're looking at this one. So we had SMT. We had multiple different things at this point in time. And let me actually see it. We had a beautiful entry. So here, if I draw this out, you're going to say, oh, well, there's no entry. But here, there's a volume imbalance. And what does that mean? Well, for me, when there's a volume imbalance, I have to include it. And it's actually very hard to see, but I'm pretty zoomed in on my 1-minute chart when I'm trading, right? I don't want to see too many candles. So see, there's a volume imbalance. So for me, the fair value gap is not this, it is this. And in this case, it would have allowed me for an entry. Now, I do understand that this is not the easiest thing to spot, but as I've said multiple times, I've been trading the same exact model for 1.5 years live. It's just second nature at this point for myself. So I do apologize if these are harder to see. And for me, there is no better way to learn to visualize them, to learn to spot them, than to train yourselves. And how do you do that? You look at charts. You look at charts and you look at a day like this, and you're going to look for all the setups. But yes, that does take a ton of screen time. Now, very straightforward stop loss here. I'm seeing inversion, fair value gap, and order block. And as you can see here, it did not reach your full objective. And for myself, that meant that this was almost a break-even trade. So pretty much I trailed my stop to this swing high right here that you'll see at this level. I hate the fact that when I hover over it, I see all the open P&L and all that bullshit. I wish I could take that away. Compact stats mode. Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's awesome. There you go. All right. See, TradingView already thought of it. Great platform. but I trailed my stop right here. So it took tiny bits, but I really wasn't looking to take profit before here, and I should have, right? You can see my RR right here. I had to R allowed. So should I have? Well, looking at it with hindsight, yes. But truth is, there was no SMT here. No indication that we should be reversing. But at the point where we inverse this fair value gap, this is where I should have at least took a partial. But you'll look at my return at this point, and I'm under 1R. So what do? Well, I go break even. Right? I can't take profit. I go break even. So in this case, it was allowing price to continue lower or stop me out break even, which, as you can see, it did not wait long, and it stopped me out break even right here. Is this a setup I take any day, right? You guys know I trade a lot of intraday retracements. For me, objective was met, right? Which is current high of day, by the way. The current high of day was met. And I just noticed actually that I don't have this on my chart. Am I still in replay mode? All right, let's remove the current day's price action so my levels show up. There we go. And I was framing those objectives, right? And we have midnight open here, New York open, daily open, have a lot of retracements to those levels. So very definitively for me, that is a good setup. But now, can you look too long after? I mean, sure. But at this point, I'm not going to be doing back and forth. So it's either you had the bias to go long and you either entered here or entered just after the news. Or if you had the bias to go short, you had this setup. And then you were just waiting, and you had other setups later down the line, which we'll speak of here in a second, actually. But see, you had another potential setup in this area where you had a breaker block form right here, right? And after that, you did take out this level. You don't have a higher time frame point of interest in this area, but you still have that higher time frame SMT, which means that it might not be an A+ setup, but it's an A setup, which I do intend to be trading, right? We did not inverse this gap until later, so your entry would have been actually very, very nice here at that high. Let me just make sure I didn't allow. It's triggering me now that the numbers are small, but I like it, so I'm going to get used to it. Your entry would have been right here. Why is that? Because you don't have any other unicorn. So that's your entry, and as you can see, very quickly with a stop loss like this, it would have allowed you to take profit, and there is no way in hell, right? I'm at this setup. I'm up 2R, but my target is at 2.5. Okay, I can hold out and not take profit. I'm at 3.35 and I have just taken out a level of liquidity. There is no way I'm not taking money out. You have to be safe in these conditions, and even not in these conditions, there is no way I'm not taking profits there. I'll always leave a runner. That's how I personally like to interact with price. I take profit often, but I still allow myself to have that runner, right? So I prefer taking small pieces every once in a while instead of just holding for a final objective. Now, we can speak quite at length about what's the better option here, right? But the math tells us that it is better to actually not take partials. But why is that? Because the math doesn't take into consideration, well, first of all, your mental perspective, right? Because let's be honest, it's very hard to leave a trade that is so much in profit just running without taking anything else. At least for me, it is. But the second thing it doesn't take into consideration is your consistency. So perhaps you make more money. But if you're winning 2 trades out of 5, is it really worth it? Instead of winning 4 trades out of 5, and that 5th trade is actually a break even. Well, now you tell me what's the better point. Is it the one that makes more money, or it's the one where you don't have a loss? So, I mean, that's all personal preference, right? And that's why I teach 2 ways to trade my model. For me, this is a very nice scalp, definitely. And you would have been looking for more at this point, right? Just like when shorting here, you would have been looking to target what? Well, you'd be looking for an intraday retracement at this point, right? 1050 to 1110 macro right here. And your entry is just before that window that we talked about yesterday of stopping to trade at 1130. So I'd be in a 15-minute chart right here, see my intraday range. Actually, we could go down to a 5-minute here because I don't think there is a discount in efficiency near equilibrium. So you'd have to go all the way down here, which is quite a large objective. But see, from a 15-minute standpoint, it would have been New York Open, which is basically the open of that candle, which is your order block. And if we go on a 5-minute chart, do we have a more realistic objective? Well, see, it's that liquidity. So pretty much that liquidity, but I'd still be targeting those equal lows. So that would be your retracement objective. That whole cluster with the equal lows right here. Let's mark it out in time. The equal lows and all of this, all of those opening prices, which we do understand from a statistical standpoint, have a high probability of getting retraced too. The basis for trading to me is that I think trading and getting 20 points average on mini per day, you can make a living. How is that wrong? That is not wrong at all, right? If you get your money in, right, you get 20 points a day, sure. But I never like to think in points because I think long term, and it's cool to have that club of futures traders. And there are so many futures traders that do this, exactly what you're saying, of they have a specific points target per day. And truth is, that is very scalable at some point, right? But that's just not how I personally like to trade. You're going to be doing this, if you're in here, right? You're going to be doing this for the rest of your life. And maybe your goal is not to be a full-time trader. Maybe your goal is to be, I don't know, well, okay, part-time, but also just a hobby, I guess. Or some people just do it as extra. I don't know. But for me, it's my job. And I want to like my job. And I don't like going for very quick things. I like being on side with the market, catching an expansion and making money out of it. And it makes me more money than just 20 points a day. But yes, can you make a living? 100%. And when you start off, you should be looking for the easiest path forward. And if that's that for you, then 100%. But if you're trading my model, then 20 points a day won't give you enough because your wins won't cover your losses. And that's the most important part of trading. For sure, hobbies are fun and work makes money. But what if you do both? My work is my hobby. I like coding. For me, those are big puzzles. They are fun. The market is fun for me. It's not fun when I'm in drawdown for a month, but I still like coming back to it because it's so simple and it's all reliant on one person, and that is yourself. No one else. No one can click the button for me. If I make money, it's because I did good. If I lose money, it's because I did bad, or it was just a bad day, which happens. But long term, it's because I did bad. So that for me is just a very simple way to look at it. Now from this point, right, just to look at it, you had this long. I did delete the other long, but you had this long which failed. Then you had a win. If your bias was short, you had possibly a win. For me, that was more so a break even. Right? But, well, it was a break even, so not more so. But you had a break even followed by a very nice win here. Well, partial, then break even, but still a very nice win here. You would be up 1.5 R on the day. On the long, you'd be up, here we were looking at about 2 R, so you'd be up 1 R. And then you had the PM session that you could be trading. Now, truth is, we had a lunch expansion. So on days like this, you have to be trading during lunch. Why did we have this? Because the manipulation occurred during the New York AM session. So we're going to expand during lunch, going into the afternoon, and early in the afternoon, we're going to retrace. See that happen. We also had some form of earnings this afternoon, I believe. Or was it just because of the G20 meetings? Trump was speaking as well. There was a lot of weird news during the day, and it's also the G20 meetings. There was a lot going on. Okay, but if you're looking to trade the PM, I would definitely go more for a long retracement. But even then, you're going to be trading into news that happened at market close. So is there really an opportunity in the PM? Well, yes, if you're looking for continuations. That's the only thing I could look for. And for me, that starts at 1:30. Right? I never trade before 1:30, just like in the morning, I don't want to trade before 8:30, 9:30, sorry. But here, I'll just do basic. You look here, and I'd be looking for a unicorn. And truth is, you had a breaker block form just before, and a minute later, you'd be in a trade. So let's look at it right here. And right at the open of your session, what did you have? Drew to swing higher into your entry, giving you a perfect short opportunity. Why do I say perfect? Because that's literally what it is. Almost zero drawdown, beautiful short, and you don't have much to target after this level. Of course, what do I always do? I go to a 15-minute chart and I look for important levels, like for example this and this, and after that there's nothing. So it's either going to stall or it's going to go all the way down here. So just like we discussed yesterday, if I'm going to be shorting in this afternoon trade, I'm going to be targeting this, and then I'm going to anticipate that it goes to this, and then I'm going to keep going and anticipate that it goes to the next one. And if it doesn't, then I'm just going to manage my trade accordingly. But at this point in time, I don't even have something I can call a position left. There's less than 20%. And see, I would target this one just because it aligns in 2 to 2.5. And I would anticipate that we sweep this one, we're going to head for the next one as well. Just due to the proximity of these two levels, right? Which are, what is that, 12 handles apart almost? So very beautiful, easy, let's be honest, easy because of the result, right? But straight up 2R, which for me would have just led to a stop loss. I didn't trade this specifically. I actually tried to long down here in the final hour, and it was just a bad trade. To be completely straightforward, wasn't anything good there. But I'm trying to look at my rules and how I would trail this. But truth is, I would just be break even and not even have my chart open. Then I would open it back up around 3, see that price is down here, trail my stop to this high, because this is now the range we're trading within. So I want to allow for retracement in that range, right? So let me just draw it up so you guys can see. So I want to allow for price to do this, but I don't want to allow for price to do this, because if we break this, then my next objectives are all the way down here. And as you can see, that's clearly where we went. So that for me is just a partial, and then we can call it break even, but that's still up 0.5 R to close the rest of my position. So that's still decent. But nothing that interesting at this point in time. When you see multiple SMTs at a consolidation high like that, is that extra confirmation? Do you mean like this? And no, it is not. It's not because I see SMT here and then here and then here that I'm going to see it as better. For me, SMT is just about divergence, and I want to see the presence of it. So the presence of it gives me insight. It makes my trade higher, my trades, and my, more specifically, my frameworks, right? My trade ideas. Frameworks is just another word I use for that. Higher probability. So it's not about where the SMT is. It's not about in what time frame it is. It's not about when it is. It's really just about it is present. And yes, some SMT at specific levels is higher probability. Some SMT at specific times is higher probability. I mean, I have the data for that. But not significantly enough for me to want to add specific rules about it. So once again, it's a question of, in this case, I believe that simplicity is better, because the result of the adding complexity is not worth it. But that is a choice I'm making. Hence why I have Rice Statistics, so that I can give access to people to have that data. And at some point, maybe someone will wonder about SMT and build a full model based on time-based SMT. And that would get some traction. People would enjoy that very much. But yeah, to be honest, it was a pretty high resistance day, followed by lunch expansion, and then a very aggressive retracement going into news. This is not what we call a pretty day or a good trading day. But you still had, well, at least for me, but you still had plenty of opportunity. It was just a harder one to trade. But right, as I explained, if you were trying to go long, you had one loss, one win, and in the PM, actually, you had a very beautiful unicorn right here, which would have been a little slow to go about, but would have given you all of your targets even before news. And bias was short, mainly for myself. And see, you would have had one break even, followed by a small win, and then a full win. Well, actually, this, as I said, let's make it simpler and just say, what if you got break even there? Small win, break even. That equates to a very nice one. When you see that 1620 Darth Vader scam wick, do you stay away? Well, I'm done trading at this point. I'm not trading. Well, basically, my execution window in the PM session is from 1:30 to 2:30. So I'm never looking for a trade past this because I can trade a lunch raid, lunch continuation, or 2 p.m. power of 3. So pretty much there is no way I'm trading the PM session after that. I don't like the power hour. It doesn't give me enough time for price to move. And well, at least statistically speaking, it doesn't expand enough for me to want to trade it. Pretty much it's just an hour of my day that I prefer to be spending elsewhere. And anyways, I'm always done before 4. And that's something that I got from prop firms, right? Because I had to be closed at that time, but I actually kept it. I hold trades when I swing trade on my personal account, but these higher time frame conditions are not conditions in which I'm looking to swing trade on my personal account. So I'm closing all of my trades intraday, which means that at 4 p.m., no matter what, all of my trades are closed. That's just a rule I implemented to make sure I didn't have any room for error. Does that make sense for us? Always glad, dude. You have you in here. You're asking 1,000 questions, and I love it. Definitely love it, and people like it too because they're staying in here, so can't hide it. You got 1,000 more? Well, good that I'm not going anywhere. Right? These peer reviews are here to stay. For tonight, though, we're calling it a night. For next session, well, yeah, exactly. Do you guys have any questions before we go about these specific setups? I know it's a pretty weird day, right? At least that's how I like to frame things myself, because we just did a lot of back and forth, but it doesn't mean you didn't have some very nice setups along the way. I'm getting ready for the thumbnail in case you guys are wondering. Always a pleasure. All right, well, you guys have a great night. All right, and we'll see each other tomorrow for another price action review. Definitely a packed week. And tomorrow, I'll actually announce it here in a second. Tomorrow's price action review will actually be at 5 p.m. EST. So an hour after market close. I do want to give a chance for my European followers and members in this Discord to see me live. So if you guys want to be present for tomorrow, it's going to be 5 p.m. EST. You guys have a great night. Good luck trading tomorrow. We'll touch base soon. Bye, guys.